Hi everyone, my name's Daryl. So typically if you're buying a used car, usually you're going to do it locally. So either at a local dealer or maybe for somebody relatively close, maybe 100 miles away, a private seller. But when you're buying a GTR, it's likely because of the limited production of the GTRs, you're going to have to go out of state or even maybe across the country to find the GTR of your dreams. So you're not just going to willy-nilly want to just go out and check out the GTR, right? You're going to want to contact the seller and you're going to want to have a list of questions that you want to know about that GTR. And really, you actually want to try to do it as much as possible, either over the phone or like on a Zoom call. So when you're asking the questions of the seller, you can actually look at the car and he can, kind of show it to you, which would be really helpful. So today I'm going to talk about 10 of the must questions that you should ask every seller of a GTR. So get out your notepad and let's get started. So the first thing I'm really going to want to know about the GTR that I'm looking at is how many owners it's had. So the GTR is different from a lot of cars out there in that they tend to have a lot of different owners. They change hands a lot. It's kind of like the slut of the sports car. And I would probably be okay with 1 or 2 owners or maybe even 3 as long as they're pretty well documented. But anything more than that, I would be a little uncomfortable with. The other thing you're going to want to do is make sure that the GTR has never been in any sort of accident, as well as it has a clean title. So with those 3 questions answered, well, it's actually really 1 question, I'll feel a little more comfortable about investigating a little bit more about the GTR. So my second question about the GTR would be, has it had any sort of modifications? You're going to find most GTRs have had modifications. It's just such a great car to tune and you get so many benefits from even just a mild tune. But a bad tune can really cause havoc with the GTR, and you don't want to get a GTR that has a bad tune and you can't figure out a way to get that tune off of that car. You also want to find out who did the tuning, who did the work, when did it get done, how many miles has it had on that tune, if there has been any sort of problems with the tune. So as long as it's mildly tuned and nothing crazy, I would be okay with it. Personally, I would prefer a stock GTR, but a lot of times that's not what you're going to find. So my third question about the GTR that I'd be looking at is, what is the history of maintenance for the car? So especially if it's had multiple owners, you really want to find out how that car was maintained. So did it have regular oil changes? Did it have the differential fluids changed and the transmission fluids changed at the appropriate time? There should be an owner's log that comes with every GTR, and so you should be able to pull that out. I'll grab it and show it to you. But every good owner should be, when they're getting their GTR serviced, should get that updated so that they know the mileage and the date that services were done. And so you really want to know from that owner when exactly the services were done, when the maintenance was done, so you can be assured that that GTR has been taken care of appropriately. Now, this is actually one of the benefits of Carfax, is typically with Carfax, you would be able to see when exactly maintenance was done on a vehicle, if it went to the dealer, if it went somewhere else. I think as a responsible seller of a GTR, I would either order that Carfax just to make sure that potential buyers would have that information on them. And so I would actually want to see, if I was purchasing a car, a GTR, I would want to see the Carfax, and I wouldn't necessarily expect to have to purchase it myself. I think the seller should do it for you. And the other benefits of the Carfax is that you would be able to see a list of multiple owners as well. So that would help you with the first question. So my fourth question would be pretty simple. Is there anything wrong with the car? Does anything not work? Is there any sort of issues with the paint? Are there any dents on the car? Is there any problems with the interior? If there are, then I'd want that seller to send me photos of that potential damage or to let me know of something that isn't working. The paint on the GTR, I think pretty much most paints nowadays, is really soft. And so I'll show you pictures of my paint. If I was to do things all over again, I would probably get my GTR wrapped or get the paint protection on it. I bought it a while ago and I should have known better, but I didn't. And, you know, but I love the car and I didn't get it necessarily just because the stellar paint. I got it just for the performance. But you're going to want to ask the seller, say, hey, what does the hood look like? Hey, what does the bumper look like? Whatever part of that bumper or the hood that looks the worst, send me a picture of it so you will know up front before you make a trip how bad that paint actually is. So my fifth question is about the tires. So GTR tires can be very expensive, anywhere from $1,500 to probably $3,000 for the tires. I think the stock run flats run over $2,000. So you really want to know if they're running non-stock tires, which they probably are. They probably replaced them with something else. But ask them if they have changed the tires to non-stock, ask them about the sizes of the tires. It's really important that you keep the tire sizes consistent with the stock so you could cause problems with the differential. The other thing is because of the way that the GTR is set up, the camber of the GTR is such that the inside tire can get more wear than the rest of the tires. And this happened to me initially. I only had like 1,000 miles on my original tires and I was starting to get thread showing up. And so what you're going to want to do is have the owner kind of turn the wheels, and then you can get in there and look and have them take a picture of what that inside of the tire actually looks like. And so what you're looking for is the thread to be relatively consistent from the outside of the tire into the inside of the tire. So you can do that for both sides. Unfortunately, the rears are a little more difficult. You would really need to get in there and get some sort of a mirror or something to check those rears out. So yeah, my rears actually probably need to get replaced. But yeah, I'll check and see how bad that looks. But tires are really important that you check out. So now that we're talking about tires, you should also ask about the wheels. So I've always had problems with my wheels on the GTR because it's just such a low car and the visibility isn't terrific. So have the seller send you real close pictures of the rims to see how bad that curb rash is so that you know up front on whether or not the wheels are going to be acceptable to you. All right, so the sixth question would be about the brakes. So brakes on a GTR are crazy expensive. I mean, if you replace the brakes with the OEM brakes from Nissan, it could cost you like 5,000 bucks. So for the most part, most GTR owners don't replace the brakes with OEMs, they just replace them with something else. But you're gonna wanna ask the seller, has he replaced the rotors and pads yet? Typically a GTR owner, might get, I've heard about GT owners replacing rotors and pads after 3,000, 4,000 miles, but I still have the stock rotors and this is my second set of pads and I've got over 120,000 miles on my GTR. So yeah, I don't track it, so I don't put a lot of heat on my pads and on my rotors, so I guess that's that. So, but what you're gonna wanna do is have that seller send you a picture basically of the rotors, real high resolution images of the rotors, and what you're gonna see, or hopefully not see, is some hairline cracks on the holes that basically vent the rotors. And if there are hairline cracks on the rotors, that means that it's gotten really hot and you're going to have to replace those rotors relatively quickly. So yeah, find out about the status of the brakes if they've replaced them, because if he hasn't, you're likely going to have to replace the brakes probably pretty soon. All right, guys, so the seventh question is going to be about the front lip. So the GTR, like most sports cars, is relatively low. And that front lip, it will not go over the top of a parking block. And so if you get too close to a parking block, it's going to damage that lower lip there. Now I actually replaced my lower lip some time ago because I hit it so many times. And well, actually you can still see I have a little bit of damage right there on that front lip. How did that happen? But you're going to want to have the seller basically take pictures of underneath the car in that front lip area just to see how bad it is and whether or not you feel like you're going to have to replace that. I think it's going to cost a couple $1,000s to do that, but better to know that up front as opposed to when you get there. So we're inside the GTR now. Mine's running, and the other thing that you're going to want to check about is the transmission. So we've all heard about the transmission problems on GTRs, and depending on how badly the GTR was abused, I guess you could say, or how rough people were on it, that transmission can fail. Too many launches, people say, oh, it's made to be launched, but yeah, I don't think you should launch like crazy, like every day. So one of the things that you can check for is just have the seller owner, when the GTR is cold, basically have them go back and forth between going into reverse and automatic. And so as I do that, so it's in park right now, so I'm going to take it and go into automatic. You can see it automatically switch to first. I'll go to reverse. I'll go back to first. Go back to reverse. Go back to first. Okay. So what you are looking for is to make sure that as you're doing that shift, that it doesn't go to second and skip first, or that it gives a flashing gear indicator indicating that there was something wrong with selecting the appropriate gear. So that would be an indication that that transmission is having problems, whether it be, I think it's the TSB clip issue for earlier GTRs, or there's another kind of pressure transmission solenoid error, something like that. That is another common problem on GTR transmissions. If that's the case, it's likely that transmission either has to have those TSB clips installed, or that transmission might have to get rebuilt. All right, guys, so my 9th question is basically about the bell housing rattle. So every GTR owner is familiar with the bell housing problem on GTRs. So you're going to want to find out from that seller if the bell housing has ever been replaced, and if it has been replaced, how long ago has it been done, and how bad the issue is right now. So you can hear my GTR. I don't hear the bell housing issue at all. So sometimes if you get underneath the car, kind of in the center of the car, you can hear it a little more clearly. But yeah, I've been really fortunate with my bell housing, never had any sort of a problem, and I've got over 120,000 miles on my GTR. So you might want to even have the seller, you know, as you're talking to them, you know, kind of put the speaker or the phone underneath the car so you can hear exactly what it sounds like. So my last and final question for that owner would be, you know, why are you selling the car, right? They should be expecting that question, but maybe they aren't. You know, maybe they're just frustrated with it. Maybe they just didn't really like the ownership experience as much as they thought they would. Maybe they've had too many problems with it, who knows? But it's a good question to ask just to fill out that owner a little bit. I would also make sure to get their full name, get their email address, get their phone number, if they maybe called you, as well as get the VIN number for the car. And, you know, maybe just try to research that buyer a little bit. You know, ask them if they participate in some GTR forums and, you know, what their name is on that forum to see, you know, what they posted about their GTR. Fill them out for more information about, you know, what it is that they've, you know, enjoyed about the GTR and the GTR experience, and, you know, why are they selling? So hopefully the seller had successfully answered all your questions and you're feeling kind of warm and fuzzy about that GTR, and you can kind of go to the next step. So as always, if you got any value from this video, please like it. You really wouldn't believe how much YouTube looks at those likes and what they mean to my channel. And also consider subscribing so you don't miss any content, because I do have a lot of upcoming content that I'm going to create about the GTR. And I hope to see you on the next one again very soon.
I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago. I've changed for the better this time. I thought I would never be fine. I strive just to say I'm alright. And for the first time in a long time, I'm alright. I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago. I'm not falling. I'll push all my chips and call all in. I'll bet on myself, you keep stalling. I hear destiny and it's calling. I'll keep my head up high through the downs and lows. And we're all going life, still nobody knows. But I'ma choose what's right and take what comes and goes. And ain't no one in life holding me back no more. I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago. Back a year ago.